Pond Punkies, Book 1, The Arrival, by Lisa L. Reeb and Cindy A. Nunn. Narrated by Josiah Bildner. Chapter 1, The Unknown Zone. I crouched behind the frozen green wall surrounding the academy. Prickly plants clung to the sides of it. "You better get down lower, Ace," I said. "Those blue spikes you call hair may be standing a bit too tall tonight." The last thing we needed was to get caught sneaking out of the training academy by an elder on the day before graduation. Ace shot back, "Come on, Blaze. Your red hair is lit up like a fireball." He patted the top of his spikes, crawling past me on the bumpy frozen surface of Neptune, and said, "I just need to get some more gooey stuff. I can't leave Neptune without my secret ingredient for the gel. Did you bring that extra tube?" "Yeah, I got it. Now, keep your voice down and stay low," I said. Ace ran his webbed hands upward through his hair like two moon rakes. He flashed me a grin, showing that all too familiar smile he used on the elders, and said, "Soon, Blaze, you will see my punky gel on punky heads everywhere, including Larissa." Even though Ace was a Pond Punky from the Naadin clan, whose power is controlling water, and I'm a Pond Punky from the Larissan clan, with the power of fire, we were closer than any two stars in the Milky Way. On our first moon orbit at the academy, where all 8 Pond Punky clans go for training, the elders paired Ace and me together at training. They caught us listening in on one of their meetings. We have been best friends since that night. We were only 8 moon orbits old. Now, 3 moon orbits later, we have control of our powers and understand how they will help Earth. If the elders knew we were leaving the academy grounds, we would be in big trouble. The elders were the older Pond Punkies who instructed us at NTA, Neptune Training Academy. The academy was a huge fortress sitting smack in the middle of Neptune's bright side. Ace and I called it Nereid's Torture Academy. Nereid was the meanest, cruelest, and ugliest elder ever to step a web foot on Neptune. I stopped at the large lock gate guarding the academy entrance and said, "Ace, I'm not so sure about this." Ace punched me in the arm and said, "Come on, Blaze. This is my last chance to get the gel." I thought about it for an instant, punched him back, and said, "What are friends for?" I turned toward the gate. "Uh-oh," I said. Nereid crept up behind Ace. "What?" Ace asked. Before I could answer, Nereid grabbed Ace's arm and reached for my neck. I backed away and stuttered, I can explain why we're out here." Nereid burst out laughing, dropped to the ground in hysterics, and turned into our friend Bob. Bob was a Pond Punky from the Proteussan clan, whose power is shape-shifting. Bob continued rolling around, holding his chubby stomach, while his long brown hair was tangled in some thorny plants. "Really funny, Bob," Ace said, walking up to him and giving him a shove with a foot.
You should have seen your faces,"
Bob said, still laughing. "You scared the bejeebers out of me," I said, helping him up. "What are you doing out here?" Bob caught his breath and said,
"I was getting one final look at the place before heading home to Proteus tomorrow. What are you two up to?"
Ace said, "We're going off grounds one last time." He didn't mention anything about his gel.
"Well, be careful," Bob said. "You better get out while the coast is clear."
I felt around the prickly wall next to the gate for the second opening Ace and I discovered on one of our trips out. We squeezed through the gap hidden by the vines. It was dark ahead of us as we made our way toward the unknown zone, where the crevices were located that oozed Ace's gooey stuff. We never actually went into the unknown zone, only close enough to get the goo. Ace's blue spikes glistened with frost from the frozen punky gel. We slithered along on the cracks of the surface. I felt the webbing on my feet and hands warming up as the cracks released the inner heat of Neptune. As we crept along the outskirts of the unknown zone, I heard a distant sound like someone talking. Ace stopped crawling, looked at me, and asked, "Did you hear that?" "Look over there," I said, pointing toward the unknown zone. Just as Kreuzer and Slate, two Pond Punkies from the Tritonin clan, crawled under the elevated frozen gas ring into the unknown zone.
Wow! No one actually goes in the zone, Ace said. Bad things happen in there.
Word is Punkies go in and never come out, I added. Maybe this is our chance to get rid of Kreuzer for good.
No way, Blaze. The zone would spit him back out,
Ace said, laughing. He did that a lot. Ace thought everything he did and said was funny. For the most part, everything he did and said was funny. That's why I liked hanging out with him. I stood there wondering what attracted Kreuzer to this creepy place. Even though Kreuzer was my age and the same height as the rest of us, a whopping 4 inches, he seemed to tower over everyone with his evil ways. His scales reflected a different, more evil green than everyone else. Maybe that was from his trips into the unknown zone. I wondered how many times he went in there. I stared over at the zone. From the day we were born, we were told about the dangers of it. Amidst the frozen gases and swirly vapors, mysterious creatures existed. Even the ancients, the most powerful Pond Punkies, feared the unknown zone. Let's get a little closer, I said, slowly creeping over to where Kreuzer and Slate had slipped into the zone. I turned around and saw Ace, still planted in the same place. He shook his head back and forth. He wouldn't come any closer. My gills pulsated hard, but I inched nearer to the zone. It was creepy. The floating, frozen gas ring surrounding it was thick and low tonight. I saw my reflection in it. Ace was right. My hair did look like fire. It was a little on the shaggy side, down below my ears, but not quite covering my gills. My dad would have been pleased to see that. I had the toughest-looking fiery red eyes, too. Not bad, I said to my reflection, stumbling backwards. A horrible, foul smell drifted out from the unknown zone, stinging my nostrils and gills. I had never smelled death, but other Punkies said that's what it smelled like in the unknown zone. Now I knew what they meant. I couldn't see Kreuzer or Slate. I knew they went in right around here. I turned around again, hoping to see Ace behind me. Instead, all I saw was the mist seeping out from the cracks and quickly freezing. I inched a little closer, reminding myself of the warnings from the ancients. It was hard to hear myself think over the winds that howled. The wind gusted, pounding ice petals against my scales. I crouched low, sculling forward, and crashed into a jagged ice column. I sure wished Ace was next to me. I slowly poked my head under the gas ring, peering into the darkness of the unknown zone. "Ah!" I shrieked, jumping backwards. 2 sets of webbed feet almost touched my nose. They had to belong to Kreuzer and Slate. I didn't know if they heard me. I doubted it with how loud the wind howled. Then I wondered if they were still alive. I stood up, and the wind threw me against the frozen vapors. I dropped down to the smelly ground, backing away from where I saw the feet. I stayed low, moving a little bit further down. I closed my eyes tight, slid my head under the ring, and then opened my eyes. The light was dim, and the wind didn't howl. It was eerily quiet. Pointy ice columns were everywhere. I slowly crawled in. The ground was softer in here. My hands and knees left imprints in the surface. As I crawled further into the zone, my scales stiffened.
"Be brave, Blaisdell,"
my dad always said. I wonder if he would have said that now, or maybe,
"What are you thinking? Get out of there!"
If only he hadn't disappeared about a moon orbit ago. Gosh, I missed him so much. Everything in me was saying, get out of here. But I had to know why Kreuzer went into the unknown zone. Chapter 2, Tritonin's Secret. I hunkered down behind a smelly mound, and suddenly the area on the other side of the small hill glowed with a bright light. Kreuzer hissed,
"Put that rock away. We don't want something in here to see us."
I poked my head around the side of the mound, lay still, and listened. Kreuzer stood there with his arms crossed over his chest, not scared of anything. He had a weird zigzag part in his white hair that looked like a crack on Neptune's surface. Those icy white eyes seemed to match his evil inside. The scariest thing about him was a scar that started above his right eyebrow and stretched down his cheek. He refused to say how it got there, which was odd because Kreuzer bragged about everything. Slate's outstretched hand trembled, with the glow rock resting in it. The light reflected off Slate's white hair, casting a green glow on his abnormally large, uneven ears. His white eyes grew larger as they locked onto his shaking hand. He slowly pulled his hand back, slipping the glow rock into his pocket. Kreuzer said,
Slate, we need to be ready to enter the geyser when it erupts, under the graduation ceremony tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Are you sure?
Slate asked. Kreuzer sneered.
I can't believe Elder Triton has a nitwit like you going on this mission.
Kreuzer had been my enemy at the academy since it became known that I was a twin and would go to Earth in the next geyser. He was just plain rotten to me, but then again, he was pretty much rotten to everyone. Even so, he seemed especially jealous of me. Twins were extremely rare and special to the Pond Punky world. Only twins could telepathically communicate with each other. We could talk to each other in our minds, no matter what the distance was between us. A few moon orbits ago, a twin died on Neptune. That twin's sister was still on Earth. Those twins were the only form of communication with all the other Pond Punkies on Earth. When the twin on Neptune died, all contact with the Pond Punkies on Earth ended. Since his death, my sister Ember and I have received extra training in order to communicate between Earth and Neptune. That meant one of us would have to go to Earth. Before my dad disappeared, he had decided that it would be me. Slate said,
I forgot Kreuzer. What's the plan again?
Kreuzer let out a deep sigh and said,
How many times do I got to tell you? We go to Earth, we freeze the place, and send the signal to Elder Triton, who will then meet with the secret circle.
Slate shook his head and said,
Oh yeah, I remember now. But what signal? How you gonna do that?
Kreuzer seemed disgusted, throwing his hands in the air and said,
Look, don't worry about the signal. I'll take care of that.
Slate snapped his fingers and said,
Oh yeah, I remember. That's when all the Tritonans get ready to blast to Earth.
A wicked grin came over Kreuzer's face, and he said,
That's when we destroy this dark dump Neptune and all its moons. Then Earth will be our own planet like Triton was before it got sucked into Neptune's orbit.
Galactic galaxy, I groaned. Why would they want to destroy all the Pond Punkies and our home moons? My mom always said,
Blaze, keep a watchful eye when you're around a Tritonan.
Did she know they were up to no good? I gotta get out of here. I needed to warn the elders. The elders said the next scheduled geyser eruption was 1 moon orbit from now, and that was over by the small dark spot where all the geysers erupt. How could there be one tomorrow, and no one knows about it? No geyser has ever erupted on the Academy grounds. Since all communication had been lost on Earth, there would be no way to warn the Pond Punkies to protect Earth from the Tritonan attack. I started crawling backwards when Slate said,
Kreuzer, do you think you will run into that twin's dad on Earth? You know, the one that stopped you from entering the geyser a moon orbit ago and gave you that scar?
My dad? Alive on Earth? He must mean me. I'm the only twin. Kreuzer reached up, running his finger in the length of the jagged scar, smiled, and said,
I hope so. This time I won't let him get away. Elder Triton has been secretly training me just for that encounter.
I knew my dad wasn't dead. Everyone else thought he was, but I knew he was alive. I needed to be in that geyser tomorrow and find him. Suddenly, my scales shivered. A small, hairy creature no bigger than one of my fingers was crawling up Kreuzer's web foot and then began to scuttle up his scaly leg. Kreuzer swatted at the creature. His hand hit the thing, but the creature hung on. Kreuzer didn't seem to notice it was still there. Over their voices, I heard a sound like bones crunching. The ground vibrated. I caught a glimpse of it out of the corner of my right eye. The monster was massive.
at least 50 times my size.
Oh no!
I cried. Its green glowing eyes locked onto me.